to the DCUK podcast. This is season 6, and this is episode 4. And as always, I'm your host, James Graham. As always, this is the podcast that brings you the news, the latest reviews, and the previews for all things coming from the capital of American soccer. Coming up on today's show, we've got news. Team Tactics is back yet again, but this time we have got Coach Gough, who talks all things Cincinnati. We're going to look ahead to this weekend's game, which is actually being played on Sunday rather than the Saturday, which is great. And it's an early time, which is amazing. And as always, going over some thoughts and a couple of questions that we've got sent in as well. But you know what? First things first, let's hear from our sponsor.
WeAreWild.com. If you're like me and want to do whatever it is you can to help the environment, there is one thing, and it will help you smell great too. Wild is the right choice for natural deodorant, as it actually works. I've always struggled with deodorants, but this one has left me feeling fresh, under the pits, and smelling good. The case is a fully sustainable design made out of aluminium. It's a case for life, and the refills are both that biodegradable and recyclable. Also, when you go to order, you can customize it to your needs. Choose your perfect case and scent combinations. My favorite scent being fresh cotton and sea salt. It's also eco-friendly and with all natural ingredients, as well as being vegan and cruelty-free. So what are you waiting for? Go wild today with special discount 40% off your first order for my UK listeners when you use the code DC United Kingdom at checkout, and for my global listeners, save 25%. Go to wearewild.com and use DC United Kingdom at checkout. Enjoy. Now, back to the show.
Let's kick things off with a bit of news. And there's been a few things. We're going to have a look at some DC news and a couple of bits from around the league as well. But some strange news, really. Just things that have been happening. Matthias Klick, Leeds United legend, was actually spotted during the warm-downs after the Portland Timbers game wearing a Leeds United scarf. So for those who are following Leeds United, you'll be pleased to know that he is still loving the club and takes it wherever he goes. So you've got that. Also from the Portland Timbers game, Aaron Herrera was named in Team of the Week, so he had a really good game. We'll be talking more about that later. And yeah, really enjoyed watching that game at the weekend, even if I did get up massively early and do the watch along, and it was just a lot of fun. Hayden Sargas has gone on loan to Las Vegas Lights for the rest of the season. Pleased to see that he's going to get some game time in a professional environment. Yes, we signed him from Sacramento Republic, if I remember rightly. It's just nice that he's going to get consistent game time over there. So pleased to see that, and I'll be keeping an eye on his progress whilst he's over there. But he isn't the first player to have played for the Las Vegas Lights who was previously played for the Black and Red. If you don't know who I'm talking about, a former DC United wonder kid in the name of Freddie Adu has played for Las Vegas Lights back in 2018. And it was the most amount of appearances he's made in a single year, which was 14 since he last played for Philadelphia Union back in like 2011 or something daft like that. So there was... What a career that guy had, Freddie Adu. Bless him. Believe the hype, and it went to his head, I think. And yeah, it went downhill after he left DC, really. Should have stayed at the club. But, you know, we could have had a really good player on our hands there. But yeah, that's for DC. Oh, one other bit was there's been sort of the start of the talks for getting a soccer stadium built in the Baltimore area for DC United. So that looks like the start of the MLS Next Pro foundations are underway. Pleased about that. Wonder what you guys think about that. Should it be more local to DC in the DMV, or are you happy with? I know Baltimore is DMV, Maryland, but would you prefer it closer to home? Is what I'm trying to say. So yes, that's happening, but obviously that'll come with time. Around the league, Lille Abada has just signed for Charlotte FC in a deal worth $8 million from Celtic in Scotland. He's an Israeli international, primarily play on the right wing, according to Dean Smith, their head coach, and he's won 10 caps for the Israeli men's national team and has also been the Scottish PFA Young Player of the Year as well. So you've got that. And then also for our upcoming opponents at the weekend, DeAndre Yedlin has signed for them in a move from Inter Miami. That's a massive move. I'm surprised that Miami let him go because he's a very, very good player. But, they had to create some room in their salary. And, that's what happens when you buy all these players and somehow Suarez is not a DP. I'm not sure how that one works, but, hey-ho. But that's pretty much it for the news. I know that's very quick this week, but, not much else has happened. If I missed anything, I'm sorry, but, that's it for the news this week. So we're going to just roll the VT and we're going to get cracking on with our match review from the game of the weekend. So the game from the weekend, Portland Timbers, across the country. It was just a massive game to really have undertaken. And, we had some match to watch. It was at 3:30 in the morning over here in the UK. Ridiculous time. And I was up for it. I ended up going to bed at around 9 p.m. on Saturday evening. Set the alarm for about 2:30. Got myself up. Got myself a nice big bottle of water. And just made it into my office here and decided to do, let's actually do the watch along. Let's keep it going. And we had such a good time. If you didn't tune into it, please do go and check it out on the YouTube channel. It was interesting to be up at that time. Definitely more bags under my eyes than I do right now. And yeah, it was, like I said, it was a lot of fun. We had obviously DC United fans, we had Portland fans in the chat as well. So that was really cool. Going to be looking forward to doing much more of those throughout this year. Going to try and do them, but it will depend on the new kid on the block when he arrives. So we shall see how that plays out for the year. But it's going to be an interesting year. New kid. I'm going to see how the podcast goes with that as well. But I'm going to try and keep things going. So we'll keep an eye on that one. But yes, the game. Cliche to say it was a game of two halves for me. But it certainly felt like the second half was a much more entertaining half compared to the first. Felt like the first half was just pretty much us getting into the groove, and annoyingly we went into the break at 1-0 down. Probably not the right sort of reflection on the scoreline. It was not the game where you're going to have lots of chances like we did against New England, where we had 30 attempts at goal. This was a lot closer and a lot fewer chances were created. But that was just down to sort of Portland's style of play. Going into it, knew that they were going to be on the counter. You looked at their first game of the season where they only had 3 shots at target, but were able to go away with 4 goals because of the own goal. It really struck me that Phil Neville was doing a counter. They started with 4 at the back. There was rumours that there might be a 3 at the back, but 4 for them. Very similar to our sort of kind of formation, but we obviously higher pressed these days with Troy Desane. But we didn't have the best of starts with Benteke getting injured in the warm-up. Muscular injury, fake grass pitch. You're going to not risk it so early on in the season as well, where if something extra happened during the game, we would be out for a long time. And when you're early on in the season, you want to start picking up points straight away to set yourself in for the rest of the year. But considering that we had our star striker out injured in the warm-up, we had to change, obviously, personnel, but also we had to change the tactics as well, because we don't have another player that's similar to Benteke, who we can just lump the ball forward to, where he's got that great first touch and he's able to bring others into play. We had Dahome up top, who's a little bit shorter, should we say, and he's not the kind of guy who is going to be winning every single head and being at the top of the aerial duels. So, yeah, a much different style of play for that. And you know what? We did well, considering. We did incredibly well. We obviously went 2-0 down in the 61st minute, but we were able to obviously bring it back. Within 20 minutes, we were able to bring it back to 2-2. So we got our first goal in the 72nd minute thanks to Mateus Klick. And then Christian Fletcher as well, scoring in the 82nd minute, which was just phenomenal. Really great to see Fletcher getting his first goal of the season. I'm annoyed that I haven't got the clip to show you guys if you've not seen it. But again, there's a good opportunity just to subscribe to the channel and, go and check out the watch along, go and check out the stories, the reels, go and see that clip because I went a little bit mad, shall we say. And I really do feel like we could have won this game. The way we played, we should have won the game, I feel like. So let's just run through some of the stats from the game and kind of break it down a little bit more. So possession-wise, like the game against New England, we had more possession. We had 55.8% compared to Portland's 44.2%. Very, very close in the amount of possession we had from the first game as well. Portland had 10 shots at goal to our 12. Then Portland had 3 attempts on target and we had 8. And that just shows you how good Crepeau was in that game as well. He pulled off some fantastic saves, so I've got to tip my hat off to him. I'm not going to actually tip my hat off because I've got my headphones on. But yeah, he was a really good player for them in this game. So I would say probably their man of the match. Evening Stu, nice to see you in the chat there. Hope you're doing well. And 15 fouls apiece. 3 cards to yellow, 2 yellow cards in the way of Portland. 7 crosses attempted by us as well, compared to Portland's only 1. And then the expected goals to show you how much we dominated in this game. We had 1.4 XG of Portland compared to ours, which was 3.5 on the road across country. They mentioned this in the commentary that's unheard of. Having a team travel hours by plane across multiple time zones, playing at a time which is much later than what we're used to. Yes, it's the furthest game we will travel all season as well, so we've got it out of the way. But to get a 3.5 goal expected goal on the road on fake grass as well, unbelievable. Very pleased about that. Just, it was such a good game from us, and I'm very, very pleased with how we did and very proud of the team for the way they played as well. So yeah, I think we should look back on that game with a lot of pride, and I'm very happy that we were able to get that point. Very happy that I got up early, and I was actually up for the rest of the day. So I was up last Sunday from 2:30 till 10:30. So I was up for about 20 hours. I won't do that all too often, but committed to the cause I am. Very happy that I did that. So yeah, but that's it for the match review this week. Like I said, great game. Very happy that I stayed up to watch it, and very happy that we were able to get the points in the circumstances that we were given. But now we're going to actually go ahead and move to the team tactics. So I spoke with Coach Gough. He goes by at FC Cincinatti Tac Talk. He does a podcast all about FC Cincinnati, who does it, and you'll find out in the show who he does it with. And he is a former Middlesbrough player, which is amazing to hear. So yeah, let's go and listen to that. And I hope you enjoy this week's Tea and Tactics. Once I find my mouse cursor, there we go. Enjoy. Well, welcome back to another segment of Tea and Tactics. And this time round, we will be talking tactics with Coach Gough, who is a massive fan and delivers things from a coach's perspective for FC Cincinnati. So welcome to the show, Coach Gough.
Yeah, thanks, James. Happy to be here. I'm happy to be in this early season, getting to face a DC United squad that seems like they're going to get a lot better as the season goes on. So let's see if we can catch it early enough.
It's honestly this first couple of weeks that we've had have, I think, taken everyone by surprise. I don't think any of us would have expected us to beat New England Revolution by the way we did, even though, yeah, they had a man sent off, but we had to beat what was in front of us. And then to go on the roads across the country to Portland and somehow manage to pick up a point when Benteke gets knocked injured in the warm up, I think has been pleasantly surprising for us as DC United fans, and the way we've done it as well has been even more surprising because we've had some entertainment for once. It doesn't feel like we've had that for a number of years, so
Yeah, yeah, I
I'm
hear
gonna
that
take that.
for sure.
Yeah. So, but FC Cincinnati have been doing all right recently, considering the first few years in MLS that weren't particularly hot, if you don't mind me saying.
It's an
Um,
understatement.
we've both been there recently,
Yeah.
so yeah. So talk to me then. Give us a bit of a background to yourself and your story with FC Cincinnati. How have you come across them, and how you were supporting them?
Sure. I'm a Cincinnati native. I actually live in Berkeley, California right now, which is the San Francisco Bay Area. But I moved out here just a few years ago. I was a career soccer coach, coaching in college and being the director of a local club. When I started having more kids, I had my third child. I decided to leave all that behind, too much travel. But I had to scratch the coaching itch somehow. So I just started tweeting about all the FC Cincinnati games, like doing little diagrams, talking about what I would do. And then Cincinnati Soccer Talk, which is the fan run organization here covering the team, got in touch with me and said, hey, we would love for you to do a podcast and maybe write some articles for us. How about we bring you in? And so I started covering the team informally, basically in the second year of their existence. The first year, a lot of people were bought in. I was kind of sitting back. I was still coaching myself, so looking to see what would happen. But then starting in like 2017, I started covering the team more regularly. And then I've been doing this Talking Tactics with Coach Gough podcast for 5 years now, and the last few
Wow.
from Berkeley, California.
And the podcast that you do as well is also involves a former player of one of my teams as well. In we were just briefly talking about it in Justin Hoyt, which is just fantastic. So it's great to see him actually still got the love for the club as well. So is he sort of a local legend as such then, Justin Hoyt?
Yeah, from the USL days, he played our first year in MLS, but from the USL days, he was a stalwart. And when we brought a player in with his pedigree that had been pretty good for Middlesbrough, that had grown up in the Arsenal Academy, you can find an online video of him on YouTube, just like leveling Cristiano Ronaldo at the corner flag when Cristiano
Yes.
was with Man United. So that kind of gravitas, I think, was really good for the city. But also, Cincinnati loves a hardworking player, and Justin Hoyt was always getting up and down the line, consummate professional. So we took to him. And another Middlesbrough player, Manu Ledesma, same sort of
Yeah.
thing, work ethic, like really great guy, great with the fans. And they both have kept a love for Cincinnati. Ledesma's still active on Twitter, tweeting about Cincinnati at times. And Justin Hoyt, like you said, actually does a weekly podcast with me as my co-host.
It just that blows my mind just thinking about a former Premier League player who still does the podcast about FC Cincinnati. Is just, yeah, it is truly mind blowing for me. That's just amazing, and utmost respect for yourself for doing this for so long as well, but also for Justin Hoyt as well, because that's just, yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. So FC Cincinnati have been in MLS. Was it 2016 that they joined in the Major League Soccer?
Uh,
Was it a little bit later than
It
that?
was later than that because
Later than.
2017 was the US Open Cup run that they
Oh
went on from the
yes,
USL. So they
yeah,
joined that 2018, I believe.
yeah.
So yeah, this is FC Cincinnati's fifth season officially. You have two official wooden spoons. You have the COVID season where they finished last, but were not officially awarded the
We
wooden
don't count
spoon.
that. We don't
Right.
count that.
So actually, this is their sixth season. Their fifth season, they won the Supporter Shield. So.
Yeah, and how much of an emotional roller coaster has it been since FC Cincinnati has joined in Major League Soccer and had the wooden spoon to then suddenly become so good and win the Supporters Shield the next season. It's how has that felt like?
Yeah, it's
Because
been a
I want that.
whirlwind because it's not been a slow build, right? They went from
Mm,
finishing last place to making the playoffs the next year and to winning the Supporter Shield the following year. So it really was just that like 1 year climb. And it all had to do with bringing in MLS experience in Pat Noonan and Chris Albright to the front office and to the coaching staff. As a fan, you know how it is watching a last place team and just like hoping to not be the last place team is a hard place to exist. Even worse
yeah.
for guys like us that are doing podcasts. It's getting on talking about the same old stuff every week. You can only talk about a team laying an egg so many ways, and it's just
Yeah.
demoralizing. So I've consistently not caught up with them being good yet in terms of my predictions. I'm always being like, the last year they won the Supporter Shield, and I think like they'll be lucky to finish fifth, maybe eke into a home playoff game was my
Yep.
prediction. So yeah, I'm hoping this year's more of that because once again, I predicted them to take a step back and not be the Supporter Shield winner. So maybe they'll prove me wrong again.
And you've obviously got more fixtures this year as well because, well, obviously we've got the Leagues Cup, which I don't know how you feel about the Leagues Cup as a whole and the effect it's had on the US Open Cup, but also CONCACAF Champions. Is it Champions Cup now or is it Champions League
Yeah, it's the
still?
Champions Cup.
It's Cup. Yeah. So how do you feel about being in those kind of tournaments these days?
I think as from the coach's perspective, I love it because what it's going to give me a chance, and I imagine Pat Noonan feels the same way, is to get some of these younger players some real experience in international competition. I think that's one of the biggest hardships on teams with the U.S. Open Cup going away for a bunch of them is that they don't have a chance to get these young players some real professional minutes. There's MLS Next
Yeah.
Pro, but it's not the same. And bringing a guy in for the last 5 minutes of a game when you're up 3-0 because you're like, oh, he can't screw it up now. It's also not the same as even starting and playing like FC Cincinnati just played Cavalier FC from Jamaica in the first round of the
Yeah.
Champions Cup. Even that, it's a real professional environment. It's a real match. There's real nerves. Having, some of the kids start is really, really a good thing. That said, it does take a hit on league form. We've seen it over and
Yeah.
over. Teams in the Champions Cup or what used to be the Champions League early on struggle. And
Yeah.
FC Cincinnati had a kind of a turgid draw at home with Toronto FC to prove,
Yeah.
that is real. Obviously got the win in Chicago last week. So we're sitting in the same place as you, but we did it backwards. We got the very disappointing home draw and then
Yeah.
the home win that we kind of expected, but we're worried we wouldn't get. Whereas you guys got like a fantastic, resounding home win, and then went on the
Yeah.
road in a really difficult environment. So I'd say in terms of league play, more positivity on the DC United side right now. But FC Cincinnati's just getting their groove. Hopefully, this Champions Cup won't prove too much for them in this early season.
And that's it. And for me, that's the other sort of positive side is the fact that you're actually getting more games early on. So you're going to get that match fitness and the match sharpness early doors. So you might see that, yes, you might have a couple of odd results to start off with, but you're suddenly going to pick up and start bringing those points in, which I'm sure you guys will do because you've got some fantastic players now. And I want to touch on that about who are sort of the current players that we should be looking out for. Obviously, from DC United point of view, we all know about Lucho Acosta.
Yeah, for sure. And every team is going to have him circled as a player that you have to try to eliminate, especially because FC Cincinnati plays in a 3-5-2 with him being, the top of that midfield triangle in the five, which gives him a lot of freedom to kind of do whatever he wants. And so he'll
Yeah,
float wide left as a winger quite often. So just as a defender, trying to be aware of where he is all the time. So far, we've seen in this early season, Toronto completely man marked him in the midfield, and then Chicago kind of did a hybrid man marking. So I wouldn't be surprised to
yeah,
see DC United do something like that. I think another really interesting thing for FC Cincinnati this year is just how stout and big the defense is. We had Matt Miazga in the center of the
yeah.
pitch last year. On the left, a young kid, Ian Murphy, who's shown to be really good. Is also tall. He's like
Okay.
6'3". And now we brought in Miles Robinson on the right. So
Yeah,
there's not three better center backs in the league for any team. So I think that that's like that strength in depth in the midfield, not just in the back line, but then you have Obino Wobodo as a defensive center midfielder. It's just a really difficult block to break down. Shouldn't have really much joy aerially. Like even with a Benteke, if he's fit to go, it'll be really interesting to see. I think the only team that limited him from winning like something like 70% of his aerial duels last year was FC Cincinnati because of Matt Miazga. So that's just, it's always an interesting battle there.
Definitely. And so you've solidified that back line. You've got a really good midfield. You did, I think it was last year, you lost Brenner during the summer. How's that been? Have you replaced them with anyone up at the top end of the pitch?
Yeah, so Aaron Bupenza is a Gabonese DP center forward that came in, and he hasn't been playing as a true nine. He's been playing as part of a two because it's a 3-5-2 system. Obviously, in the offseason, we lost Brandon Vasquez as well to Monterrey, who actually we're going to be taking on in the Champions Cup this week before our DC United match. So you have a big Thursday match against FC Monterrey and then DC United. So it'll be really interesting to see if there's a for DC United, if we even see these players start, or if the team, as we've often seen, comes out a little flat. But Aaron Bupenza should score buckets of goals. He's a really talented player. Right now, the big difficulty with him is that he almost never seems to be on the same page as his teammates. He's a very go it alone sort of player, as is Lucho Acosta. So those two are often kind of yelling at each other, being like, I wanted you to go here. No, I wanted you to pass here, so it's been an interesting sort of thing. But yeah, and then Corey Baird is the other new forward that came in for Brandon Vasquez. So those two really haven't struck up a great partnership yet. So the attack has not been clicking on all cylinders yet.
And again, that will come with time and gelling together, having that much time on the pitch. But you've just mentioned they're playing Monterrey in the Champions League on Thursday. We're recording this on Wednesday, so when I actually do the full podcast, we'll be live streaming on Thursday, so it might clash with the Champions League match. But then our game is on Sunday, so you've got that little bit of an extra day, but it is at quite an early kickoff, which is great for me, because I get to watch it at a sensible time. But
you and Justin Hoyt both. He's excited at the early kickoffs too.
When I saw the fixture list being released and I saw this one kicking off at 7 p.m. our time, I was just like, yes. And then followed by Inter Miami the next week. I was like, oh no. But that is a 6 p.m. kickoff for me. I'm like, what's going on? 2 weeks in a row. Can't believe it.
Well, you're in this weird part of the season where America comes out of daylight savings time. So actually the difference is only 7 hours instead of 8 for just a couple weeks.
It's crazy. And I'm here for that. I would love it to be that little bit closer together, but we can all wish. And then the Apple TV deal has knocked everything out, because everything is suddenly then kicking off at 12:30 normally, my time anyway. And I can imagine for you, it's a little bit odd for last year as well, and coming into this year.
Very odd.
Yeah.
Especially, here in California, I'm watching the evening games at 4 p.m. So kind of the weird time where it's like, do I have a beer while I watch this? Is that weird? Does that make me, I don't know. So it is weird.
I will answer that one for you. No, it's not weird. Absolutely. I mean, to be fair, I watched the game at the weekend, and that was a 3:30 kickoff on me. And I was like, do I have a beer? I'm up for the rest of the day, though. Do I have a beer now?
It just counted as a night beer, not a morning beer, and you're good.
Yeah, it was a really weird time, but I managed to get through it, and we did everything we could, and I'm really happy that I stayed. I didn't stay up. I got up really early for that one, so that was fun. A little bit of history behind Cincinnati. Then we've talked about what it is like currently, but taking a look back, it's quite a short storied history. You mentioned about the US Open Cup run, which I think is everyone kind of knows about it, but for those who don't, can you give us a little bit of a background behind that little run? What made it so special, and actually what makes Cincinnati so special generally?
Yeah, so Cincinnati as a club came into the league with into the USL as a professional club with a lot of fanfare already. Even though it came out of nowhere, there was no buildup. It's just all of a sudden there was a USL team, and the stadium was getting sold out. Cincinnati, Ohio is like a hotbed for youth soccer in America, just lots of kids playing. So it was a really good family atmosphere. It was on the campus of University of Cincinnati, easy to get to. So then when they started having MLS ambitions, that was right around the time that they were going on that US Open Cup run. So you had Commissioner Don Garber coming to one of those Open Cup matches when FC Cincinnati played Chicago Fire, right? FC Cincinnati beat arch rivals Columbus Crew in that, with a player having like kind of a weird GB Fall is his name, and he's like he bit a Columbus player allegedly, and like so there's a whole thing there. And so beating both the Crew and the Fire en route to an Open Cup semifinal was really just like a whirlwind. Great. The ESPN ran those games because the stadiums were packed. The stadium was packed. It was a raucous crowd. So that was our introduction to the American public. That's why US Open Cup and that part is so important to our history. Of course, we won't talk about the fact that we took a 2-0 lead at home against the New York Red Bulls in the semifinal and then petered that away and ended up losing in penalties, but we won't talk about that. So anyways, that was what a lot of Cincinnati fans point to as the moment where MLS said, yeah, you know, this tiny little Midwestern city, we have to take them because it is a small city. We have big city amenities, which is why people love to live in Cincinnati. We have a professional American football team, professional baseball, obviously professional soccer. There's a great symphony and museum. So it has those big city amenities, but it's a small city feel. So it's like a really great place to raise a family. And I think that's part of why you see guys like Justin Hoyt and Manu Ledesma stay so attached to the city, because it's just like a place where people really love to live once they get there. Not a great place to visit. It's too small. It's a great place to live.
I was about to say, is it somewhere I can come over and actually go to a game even? But I think you've obviously had the old stadium, but now you've got the brand new stadium, and it is, from the outside, it looks great. Have you been to the new stadium? I know you said you're now in California, but
Yeah.
have you been?
So I'm a season ticket holder, even from out here. So I fly back for all the home openers. I have a group of friends that I have the tickets with, so they use them when I'm not around.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have been to TQL Stadium. It's a great place to watch a game. It's like you walk up to the stadium from a historic downtown area with all kinds of bars and stuff. Probably not that dissimilar to what is in the UK in a lot of places, where the stadium feels part of the city, not like some adjunct outside of the city that you have to like go park in a giant parking lot to get to. You know, so you're like hanging out at the bars, you walk to the stadium, all the other fans are walking there. They have these big LED lights on the outside of the stadium that light up in different colors that they put words on and things. So it's a cool experience. And I would say as a soccer or a football fan, I think for sure you should come to visit Cincinnati, because seeing a game in TQL Stadium, whether it's an international or a club game, and the environment before and after the game is so much fun. It is really a great place to be.
Yeah, because I was just going to touch on the fact that you've actually had US men's national team matches there as well, which is fantastic. The capacity is what, 25,000, I think, off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think it can hold up to 27 if they open up all the little auxiliary places, you know, but I think on a typical match day it's just over 25,000.
Yeah. And to have an international game, and to me, being in the UK and having international matches at the likes of Wembley, where it's 90,000, and across Europe, the similar sort of attendances, and then you get to the US and they actually do go around the country and actually play in loads of different stadiums that don't actually have a dedicated international stadium. It's really good to see, and that actually brings a lot more fans to the sport as well. I think it's a really good way of doing it. Who is your favorite player of Cincinnati ever? Is it Justin Hoyt?
I mean, it's got to be Justin Hoyt, because he's my buddy now, right? Like I can't go.
You can't say anyone else.
Yeah, no, for sure. I also stay in touch with a player, Mike Lahoud, who played defensive center midfielder, and I love to watch him play because he was the kind of player who never did anything fancy, but was always in the right spot, always picking the right pass. So he's one of the tops all time. I'm going to give the most coaches answer ever for this current squad, and I'm going to say Yuya Kubo, who's a Japanese international. He is a guy who came into FC Cincinnati as kind of a hybrid winger / second forward. got promptly converted to defensive center midfielder just because of a need, and he could do the job. Has now played the defensive center midfielder, attacking midfielder. He's played the 8, like the box to box role. This year, he debuted as a right wing back and a left wing back in the 3-5-2. Again, just needed him there. He is the not the Swiss Army knife, but the Japanese Army knife. He is the utility player. He can play anywhere, and he does a good job everywhere he plays. Not to mention, he's just all effort. He never slows down. Doesn't complain to the refs, things like that, all the things you love as a coach. So Yu Kubo's my guy right now, although, there's other players that are more fun to watch, I'd say.
Yes, definitely. It's good to have that kind of player that you can just depend on. I think it's the really good kind of player. I think for me, in our team at the moment, that kind of player, I don't know, we've really got a player who can just play anywhere on the pitch, but you've got the likes of Russell Knaus who will just do the job.
Yep.
Unsung hero, just gets on with it. Doesn't, as you say, doesn't complain. Just does what's asked of him, and you can't really ask much more than that, can you?
No, definitely not. Not as a coach or a fan, because a fan, you love seeing the guys out there that you feel like it means something to, and that like it's not just all passion and it means something to me, but it means something to me in terms of like the image of the club. I'm not going to go screaming at refs because that hurts the image of the club. And so those are the guys that stick around in our hearts or in our coaching staffs and things long after they retire, right?
Yes,
definitely. Or on our podcasts.
On the podcasts, exactly. And we're not going to talk about referee situation now, are we?
Let's not.
No. That's for another day. So this weekend, as I mentioned, we're playing on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. UK time, which will make that 11 a.m. for you, off the top of my head.
Actually, it will be 12 because of the daylight savings time that I mentioned. But yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's confusing. We're in that confusing time, as you said. What are you expecting from this weekend's game? As you mentioned, you've got the Champions League game as well. What are you expecting out of it?
Yeah, so what I would honestly expect because of that Thursday Champions League game is I would expect to see some rotation in the squad. I would not be a bit surprised to see one of those 3 center backs that I mentioned not play. You will get one of, for sure, either Miles Robinson or Matt Miazga, because those are the guys who play in the center of that back 3, which is a really important spot. I think that you'll probably see rotation on one of the wing backs, which means maybe new signing FC Cincinnati signing DeAndre Yedlin might slot in at right wing back. If he doesn't get debut in the Champions League, if he does debut in the Champions League, you might get to see Yu Yakuba out there. So, and then I wouldn't be surprised to see a kid in the midfielder, maybe a Malik Pinto. Has shown a lot of good things. He's a kid out of Princeton University, I think, that was a rookie last year. He's been getting good minutes. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some of that rotation. You might get a Sergio Santos up top, but that's what's hard about this match, right? And talk about what we expect, because we don't know what's going to happen on Thursday. So maybe while you're talking about the match tomorrow, you can kind of look over at the starting lineup and say, I know Coach Gough said we'll probably see a Malik Pinto, but I think he won't because he's already playing on Thursday,
Yeah, I can just have a cheeky quick look in there. Cool. We'll take a quick note of that one. So a bit of an unknown, shall we say, but I also want to kind of take a little cheeky prediction as well for the weekend. It's one of those where I still don't know from a DC point of view how this is going to go. We're still in the very early stages of the Troy Lesesne era and the way we're playing, and we've all been just taken aback and surprised at how we've done. But from your point of view, what do you think the scoreline is going to be this weekend?
Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine DC United putting together any sort of like real offensive threat against FC Cincinnati because the defense has been so good, rotation aside, not knowing. That said, I feel like this team is always good for one mental lapse. I think there's going to be more animus than we would normally expect between a DC and an FCC team because Troy Lesesne, I think, really doesn't like FC Cincinnati from his time with Red Bull. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it get a little chippy. But I think that it will end up with probably a 1-1 draw. I can see both teams kind of not really clicking offensively, but finding a breakthrough. Both teams kind of feeling each other out a lot. So that's, I think, if I had to pick a 1-1 draw.
Fair. And last week on the podcast, we had the Outer Roses looking at the Portland Timbers, they predicted a 2-2 draw, and that's what we got. And I said I wouldn't be too disappointed with a 2-2 draw. Looking back on how we played, I am now too disappointed with a 2-2 draw because we had the opportunities to win that game.
Yep.
But against an FC Cincinnati side who have looked really good recently, a 1-1 draw, I would be really happy if we were able to obtain that particular result. So fingers crossed we will get that. And if we can sneak a victory in, I'm not going to argue. Before we wrap things up, it is Tea and Tactics, and you are a coach. We've got to ask, what is your favorite formation?
Well, I have to do the obligatory thing where I say a formation is just a starting point, right? And that things are fluid from there. That's the
You
coach's
sound like
answer.
Troy Lesane.
So it's all coach's answer. And I mean, and like as much as it's kind of like coach speak, it's also true because I'm gonna say my favorite formation actually is playing in a 4-4-2 with with what I would call Brazilian box midfield. Like it's like
Okay.
a fluid rotating box.
Yeah.
And the reason why I like that is because as that box rotates, you have a player pop up on the wing and it looks a little bit like a 4-3-3, or, you have a player sit deeper and it looks a little bit like a 3-5-2. So the fluidity of the formation is the point of why I like that formation, not because it stays there. Right. But
Yeah.
that I think is my favorite. I love to have the potential of combining with two forwards up top. I know it's all the rage for the past decade plus of having a single, target forward. But I like that having the two forwards combined. I just feel like it gives a lot of options for fluidity. So 4-4-2 Brazilian box, also because it just sounds like way cooler than saying, 4-3-3.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm so glad you said just straight off the bat 4-4-2. I'm like, that's what we're all about over here in the UK.
Yeah.
Well, I am anyway. I'm English.
Yeah.
I've got to be 4-4-2. It's the British way. It's the way we do things over here. So never mind all this Pep Guardiola tiki-taka style of football.
Yeah, get it launched, right?
Yeah, long ball, straight to the target, man. Knock it down to the other forward. Boom, bish, bash, bosh. Get a goal. Oh, dear. But yeah, thank you for actually coming on. And I didn't even realize you were in California, so I appreciate you coming on and with the time difference and everything. So for those who are out there who do want to tune in to yourself, Coach Gough, with Justin Hoyt, and I feel like people over in the UK should be doing that because Justin Hoyt is an English player.
Yeah.
Where can they find you?
So you can find me wherever you get any podcast at Talking Tactics with Coach Gough. On the socials, I'm at FC Cincy Tac Talk. So Cincy with a Y and then TAC Talk. And that's also a good place to kind of get my thoughts, even if you're not going to download the podcast, but you're like, oh, when they play DC United or they play another team that I'm interested in, I want to hear the other perspective, follow me on Twitter or Instagram for that.
Definitely. Alexa, thank you very much for coming on and taking the time out of your lovely day to come and talk to me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And actually, having the coach's perspective is always a good thing. So I would like to say thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, James. Enjoyed it.
There you go. Really interesting chat with Coach Gough there. And yeah, learned a few new things and really good to hear from his perspective and the fact that he said 4-4-2. Gotta love the guy for that. So yeah, we've got FC Cincinnati this weekend. I did try and have a look, see if there was any team news for them for their game this evening. As we are going live, they is due in just over an hour and a quarter before their kickoff. But I did not see anything about their lineup. I've not seen any team news or anything. So we shall see later whether they play any of their sort of main players against Monterrey. I would imagine they would, because Monterrey are a good side. So we shall see what kind of team they will put out on Sunday. But yeah, so that is a Sunday, March 10th kickoff. It is going to be 7 p.m. our time. And that will mean it's a 3 p.m. kickoff in DC. If the maths is right in the daylight, the time zone changes and everything. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. Good time for the kickoff. It is on MLS Season Pass this week. Head-to-head wise, there's been 10 matches between the two. So this will be the 11th game between the two sides. It's been 5 wins for DC, 2 for Cincinnati, and 3 draws. Obviously, like I said, they've got the Champions Cup match this week, so we might not see a full strength team out, so we could take advantage of that. They have currently picked up 4 points from their opening 2 matches, as Coach Gough previously mentioned. They have 2 DPs, and Aaron Bopenza and Abina Nubodo, and they've got 2 players in the under-22 initiative in Marco Angolo and Alvaro Barrial. Both players have signed on Football Manager, believe it or not. You probably would believe it if you know me and how much I play Football Manager. Marco Angolo, I signed him on my Middlesbrough save, where that was a long save, that one. And Alvaro Barrial, I've just tried the winter update. I've got a save going with DC United, and yeah, they waived him. Cincinnati waived Barrial, so I was like, I'm going to claim him from the waivers. Absolutely have him. I claimed him for a couple of some odd transfers on that game in MLS anyway. Let's put it that way. They do have one generation Adidas player in Roman Salentano, the goalkeeper, who we came across last season, and he was very, very good for FC Cincinnati. But for this weekend, my key for the match, and I've said it before in previous matches against FC Cincinnati, is we've got to keep Lucho Acosta quiet. That's got to be the main thing we got to do this game. If he's quiet and he's forced to play from deep, that means we can nullify the attack. He gets frustrated. He'll get angry. He'll start nipping at the ref, and he'll start having a go at him. Probably pick up a yellow card, so that means he'll have to be a little bit wary. If we can do that and frustrate Lucho Acosta from the get-go, we could stand a really good chance in this game. So if we can do that, I can see us winning. I can see us either 1 or 2-0. And they've only scored 1 goal so far this year in the league. And their attack, as was mentioned, isn't firing on any cylinders at the moment. So, yes, that will probably change at some point. But we can take advantage of what we've got so far. And we'll have, hopefully, as near enough a full-strength team as possible. I'm hoping Benteke is going to be back, but as I've gone not live for this one, the press conference hasn't happened yet. That's actually happening on Friday, so I'll be tuning into that one, and if I hear anything, I'll let you guys know. But yeah, if we can do that, 1 or 2-0, I think we can see a very good victory. And that will be another one on the road. We can keep, you see where we're going. We started well. We can get another, if we get another point, that's going to be 5 points from 3 games. And from these opening fixtures, I don't think many people would have really put us at that level. So we are surprising. And I did say this before the season started. We could be dark horses for something this year. I think we're going to surprise a lot of people. Time for a couple of fan thoughts and questions. A couple were sent in, and one of them was about the previous game against Portland, and that Liski over on Instagram said they were very disappointed in Dahomey. And I don't agree with that one, if I can be brutally honest. I think Dahomey was put in a very awkward position as a central striker on his own. He's not that kind of player. He's usually out wide, and he was playing as the sole striker. So, very uncomfortable for him. He had a good opportunity, and he had a really good ball in from Jared Strauss over to him, and he had a free header, which, for me, I believe he could have done a bit better with. He could have headed it into the ground, and that would have made it a lot more difficult for the keeper, but it was quite a good header in the end. It had power behind it. Crepeau made a very good save, tipping it over the bar. The only downside to it is it was at a good height for him to make that save. So, yeah, if he headed it into the ground, it would have been fine. But he's only 5'9", bless him. It's very difficult for him to get himself over the top of the ball. So, based on that, I think I can't be that disappointed with how he played. I think he did well in the situation that was given to him. He hit the post as well, so he's very unlucky there. He was getting in some decent positions. I think that Dahomey, and I've seen it on Discord and everything, he takes a lot of stick from fans in the Discord and stuff. I don't think all of it is deserved, if I'm honest. I would stand up for him a little bit more. And then question from Daniel 3 Photos on Instagram, who's does a lot of the photography stuff that for DCUK as well. He asks, do they have a chance against Inter Miami? So we're looking a little bit further ahead on this one. Orlando looked lost against them. If you don't know the scoreline from that one, that was a 5-0 win for Inter Miami at Miami, and there was a bit of controversy on that one with the refereeing situation as well, where one of the referees was being seen on social media wearing an Inter Miami shirt and posing with fans and friends and things in the shirt, and it's just like, why is he being allowed to officiate in an Inter Miami game when he's an Inter Miami fan? So that changed, but again, still didn't change that much. 5-0 win for Inter Miami. I think a lot of the Orlando players were a little bit starstruck. The fact that they were playing up against Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets, Luis Suarez, Lionel Messi, very difficult players on the front. But you know what? There are weaknesses in that team. If we can play the way we do, which is the high press, and that's where they struggle, we could get a credible result. We might not win. We might not win. We might get a draw. We might not even get that. I think going into this game, we could have very low expectations, and if we get anything out of it, we can go, we did good. So yeah, so that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed this show, and if you do, remember to give it a subscribe if you're not subscribed already. If you're listening to the show, please do leave a little rating and a review if you're listening on Apple Podcast or on Spotify. If you're on YouTube, give it a little cheeky like. And if you want to leave a comment, please do. And please share it with your friends. The more people who listen to the show, the more people we get supporting the club. Things are starting to look a little bit rosy. Things are starting to blossom. And we are starting to move forward. And it's a nice time to be doing things like this. Nice time to be talking about the club. We just hope we continue throughout the rest of the season. So, like I said, this weekend, FC Cincinnati, I think we can get the win. If all else fails, we'll have fun.